Welcome to the Trusted Podcast with your host, Blake Johnson. In each episode, Blake interviews professionals in different areas of life that you need a trusted source of information, including trust and estate planning. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, trustedepa.com. Now, here's the host of Trusted Podcast, Blake Johnson.
Hello. Welcome to the Trusted Podcast. Great to be with you today. Got a wonderful guest with us today. I've got Nate Nelson. He is one of the founding members at Nelson Jones. They are a law firm in Salt Lake City, Utah. And, he's one of those guys you see on a billboard, but he's one of the good guys. So we're going to talk about personal injury and what that means. Nate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Blake. Good to see you.
Okay. Give me a little bit of your background, your journey of how you got to being a personal injury attorney and, what kind of led to that.
Yeah. So went to law school a really long time ago. Graduated. And right after law school, moved down to Las Vegas, a place that I think you're familiar with, and worked down there for a few years doing insurance defense. After about two and a half years of that, moved back to Utah. Had to take the bar again. That wasn't fun, but did it. And then just been doing really civil litigation here in Utah since then. One of the things that I've done over the years, really for over a decade, is represent law enforcement, right? With different things that they deal with in their careers and whatnot. But, in the context of representing them, did quite a bit of personal injury in helping those clients and just have developed that practice area. And now, instead of kind of, just doing it through word of mouth, you mentioned the billboard, we're now more public facing, right, with respect to taking on more clients that have been injured and helping them with their cases. So, yeah.
And before we dive into the nitty gritty, what do you like to do outside of work and something interesting most people wouldn't expect to know about you?
Oh, what I like to do outside of work, I love Lake Powell. I like to spend at least, 3 or 4 weeks down there every summer with the family. Played basketball in college. I'm too slow to do that anymore. And when I try, it usually, lands me on the couch for 2 or 3 weeks, but I'll try every once in a while. Like to play golf. Something interesting about me that you might not know, I am 7 of 9. So there's 9 kids in my family. So a really big family. Yeah.
Okay. I also didn't know the college basketball thing, so that's cool too.
Yep, wouldn't have guessed, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about, the real need for personal injury. I think people have a bad taste in their mouth. They see all the billboards, especially down in, Vegas, because they're everywhere, and they think, those guys, what are they doing? They're not real attorneys. Why do you do what you do, and why do people actually need a personal injury attorney?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way that we got into personal injury was just, we've here at the law firm, we've worked for the little guy really since our inception. And, the context for that is representing law enforcement, right, against maybe their employer, against, maybe a certifying body in the state. And so it was kind of a natural progression for us just to continue to help people that are kind of really in a difficult position relative to trying to resolve their problems, right? Insurance companies are financially strong. They have all the resources. They can hire, lots of lawyers. And, it was just a natural progression for us to try to help the little guy in reference to being injured and trying to ensure that the insurance companies deal fairly with them so that, they can be compensated for their injuries to the extent that, there's a monetary value that you try to put on that to make them whole. The reality is, it doesn't, right? But that's what the system is set up to try to accomplish. So helping them with that.
What are the biggest myths or misconceptions about working with a personal injury attorney, or people thinking that they don't need one?
Well, two things come to mind right off the top. One is, a lot of people, to my surprise, don't really understand what a contingency fee is, right? People think that just like you would maybe for like a business deal or something else, you're paying the attorney by the hour to work on your case. That's not how injury cases work. The attorneys don't get paid on a contingency basis unless the case settles or they take the case to trial and they win. And so, the client isn't out of pocket per se. I mean, obviously, those are funds that might otherwise go to the client that they pay the attorney with. But that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is you don't have to come out of pocket to pay the attorney to take your case. The other thing is a lot of people think that, hey, if I take this case and handle it myself, maybe I'll end up putting more in my pocket. The reality is, as insurance companies, they kind of expect a certain thing when dealing with an attorney, right? And they almost, I would say, price in, the attorney being paid by virtue of the settlement. Whereas if you're not represented, I don't think the attorneys are going to, or sorry, not the attorneys, the insurance company is going to pay as much, knowing that, you're going to be able to put so much in your pocket, so much towards the medical bills, things like that. So it's hard to game this system, I guess, if you will, and get more money without an attorney. Plus, if you have an attorney, the upside, right? The attorneys know what a case is worth. Obviously there's variance within that, but they have a good idea because they deal with these kinds of cases all of the time. And so they know if what the insurance company is proposing is unfair, where, a layperson might not understand that, think they're getting a good deal, and they're really not. And so those are two misconceptions that I think, exist relative to personal injury lawyers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Most people think attorneys, big bills, hourly fees, and that's, it's not how I operate. I do flat fee because, that's the easiest way for us to do. And you do the contingency, it makes it a lot easier for everybody because they know, hey, this is what it's going to be. And, that does help out because, when they're injured, they're typically in a place where they're already spending a bunch of money on their medical bills and all that stuff. So they don't have the means to come out of pocket for all the other things of legal work.
Yeah, they're already suffering financially when they get to us. The last thing that, they want to have to deal with is finding a way to pay an attorney out of pocket to take the case so that they can get their medical bills, paid, so that they can get the medical treatment that they need, all these other things to get their cars fixed or whatever it is that they're dealing with, right? Sometimes they miss work, right? That makes it even more difficult. And so, even though personal injury lawyers might catch a bad rap, I mean, at the end of the day, it's set up to try to be helpful, to the little guy, right? And so anyways.
Yeah, I mean, and just like there's in any industry, there's people who abuse it, who do it the wrong way. And, we won't name names, but there's those in every industry. But you have someone who's doing it the right way, who's actually looking out for your best interest. It's going to make a big impact. I have a friend in another state who does personal injury, and he's even gotten insurance companies to admit to him. He's like, if they come in by themselves or if they come from XYZ firm, we offer this, and they take it every time. But if you call, or someone who actually knows what they're doing calls, that offers way up here and way more. So to your point of having an attorney does make a difference, with the caveat of it being the right attorney.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yep.
So give me some red flags for people to know whether they've got a good attorney, or the red flags that they've got someone that they should probably steer clear of.
I would say one of the main things, right, is you want to make sure that you're getting the care that you need, right? But if you're not getting unnecessary care and trying to rack up the bills for the sake of, making the case more valuable or whatever, an attorney might be thinking, right? And I'm not, so, get the care that you need, right? Get through the injury, to the best of your ability, right? Get the maximum medical improvement and then proceed, right? But don't, get unnecessary care, right? I mean, try to take the recommendations of the doctors that you're seeing relative to the care that you need and treatments that you need, as opposed to, letting an attorney dictate that or something like that, I think would be kind of a red flag in the area. Yeah.
Okay. Any others? When they're meeting with attorneys trying to figure out who to hire?
I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, I think that when you meet with any attorney, whether it's a personal injury attorney, a business lawyer, a trust and estates guy, it's really, do you feel good about, that person and are they going to try to represent your interests aggressively? And I think that you can get a good sense of that just by meeting, with the attorney. I mean, there's a lot of really good personal injury attorneys, and despite the fact that they get a bad rap because of the billboards and things like that, at the end of the day, I really feel like that the plaintiff's bar generally, for sure here in Utah, is really trying to do right by their clientele and make sure that they're taken care of. And, everybody expects to be paid for the job that they do. That comes with, the expertise and whatnot. But making sure that the client is taken care of and happy. And at the end of the day, you get repeat business, right? If you have happy clients because they feel like that you had their interests at the forefront, it's going to be a net positive, for the attorney long term. And so those are the kind of lawyers that I think you want to be looking for.
Okay, awesome. Any recent changes in your industry or things that are on the horizon that need to be people need to be aware of?
No, I mean, there's always, insurance limits and coverages and things like that changing, right? I mean, I think that, right now there's pretty aggressive lobbying with respect to some of the ride share, limits and exposures. But I mean, that's all stuff that's kind of happening in the fray. I don't think anything's actually come of it yet. I just know that it exists. Ride share with Uber and Lyft is it's a big deal, right? I mean, no offense to the Uber and the Lyft drivers, but sometimes when I get in those cars, it's tough, right? I'm not sure I really feel safe. And so anyways, it's just an issue that's pressing, and it's something that, we haven't really dealt with right over the years. So there's new laws potentially coming from that. But outside of that, no, I can't really think of any.
Okay. What should people do before they come and meet with a personal injury attorney? I mean, obviously they have to be injured, but that's not something I say go out and do. But let's say they are injured. What are the steps they should take ahead of time? Things that they should bring with them that are going to be helpful to make sure you can help them.
The most important thing is to go get the care that you need based on the injuries that that you've experienced and suffered, right? I mean, that's the most important thing, right? To the extent that you can, depending on what kind of accident you're in or what injury you've experienced, try to document, try to get information, try to get photos, and then once, you've gotten that documentation together, right, and you've got, the immediate treatment, obviously you're not going to be perfect, right? But to a point of maybe being able to talk to an attorney about what the next steps are, after you've done all that, then I think that you start doing some research, see if you can find an attorney that you think would be, a good fit that could help you out and can move the case forward. And again, a lot of times with clients, just knowing that they have somebody that is going to deal with all of this, right? That's going to gather the information, that's going to put it together in a cohesive manner, that's going to present it to an insurance company and is going to lobby for them, right? And a favorable settlement. That's part of the healing process, right? If you're in a good mental state, I think that your body can heal a lot better. Whereas if you're stressed out, if you have anxiety, that I think can cause injuries to linger and make things more difficult. So there's a lot there, but I think that's generally what you need to do to the extent that you experience an injury before, trying to find a lawyer.
Yeah, and to that point, we both know people in the medical field who have said that, like that you do recover better from injuries if you have that stuff taken care of. So it's not just Nate's opinion. That's, there's some medical knowledge behind that shows that you can actually, your body will recover if you can, have that stress taken off of you. Get the care you need and then have somebody who can handle that side. So it's one less thing on your plate that you have to worry about.
Yep, 100%.
All right. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh, man. The best advice. I go back to the quote, and I can't even, I'm sure I'll butcher it, but something about, Henry David Thoreau talking about, if you advance confidently in a direction and you just take things a little bit at a time and you just believe in what you're trying to do, and then you look back at what you've accomplished, you're going to be surprised at where you've come, right? And so, a lot of times just, in our daily lives, we're just doing so many things, and, we all got kids, and there's just so many things that we have to balance out. Right. And you just, you balance it, you focus, and, you look back over a decade and you're like, wow, I mean, we've come a long way. Right. So, I like that. I don't know if it's the best advice, but it's something that I think I reflect on a lot in reference to my life and where I'm at and kind of where I've come from. So.
Yeah, and that seems to be a theme with a lot of people we have on the show. It's about consistency, keeping at it, keep working forward, and then, in the words of Dan Sullivan, we measure backwards. So we look back at what we've done, and that's where you can see the growth. We don't, if we're looking forward at the ideal all the time, we're not going to see much progress. But if we're looking back at where we came from, lots of progress is made, and you feel a lot better about yourself when you do that.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all we have time for today. Appreciate you being on the show, Nate, sharing your wisdom with the listeners. We'll call it a day for now, and we'll be with you guys next time.
Okay. Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good day.
You've been listening in to the Trusted Podcast with your host, Blake Johnson. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, trustedepa.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Please subscribe to make sure you are notified each time a new episode is released each week.